Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Daryl Hominick, and I want to welcome everyone to MS Connect 2014. I'm the Director of Client Services and Government Relations from the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada, Manitoba Division, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies today. I hope that everyone enjoyed visiting the various booths in the Peanut Gallery exhibition this morning. And don't forget about our exhibitors located in the main hall, just to my left. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. You've likely noticed the audio-visual equipment here. We are broadcasting our keynote addresses across Canada live via the web, and we'll make the sessions available on YouTube following the event. We'll also have DVDs available in our borrowing library at the Winnipeg office. The main washrooms can be found directly across the main conference room doors. Also, for anyone requiring assistance, a healthcare aide is available. Her name is Shar. Is Shar available in the room? She's just right over there, folks. If you're needing assistance, feel free to approach Shar. I would also like to introduce the President of the MS Society of Canada, Manitoba Division, Donna Boyd, to give greetings.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is a fabulous morning. A little bit windy outside, but great to be in here and great to see such a fabulous turnout for this conference that we're having today. The MS Connect conference is the only conference on multiple sclerosis in Manitoba. It's held once a year, and we're rotating now between Winnipeg and our Westman chapter in Brandon. This year's theme is Facing the Challenge, because certainly living with MS is a challenge affecting so many facets of one's life, from being able to focus on text for reading, to be able to pick up a cup of coffee, and for some just walking across the room is not only difficult, but impossible. The symptoms of MS are varied and can affect one's ability to work, play, to live one's life in the way that you always thought you would. 20 years ago, people living with MS were often told to stop exercising and refrain from straining themselves in any way. Today, we know that staying fit, active, and eating well can help people living with MS to achieve their best possible quality of life. Today's conference is about facing the challenge of MS with a sense of optimism. Our goal is to help those living with MS focus on the things they do still have control over. Lifestyle changes and a focused mindset can help us all take charge of our health. But don't just take it from me, take it from someone who knows. It is now my pleasure to introduce Karen Tweed. Karen recently rode in the 25th anniversary Biking to the Viking MS bike tour, and Karen braved the same headwind, and I also rode, and I can tell you it was quite a crazy headwind, about 70 kilometers an hour in some points coming around the lake, the rain and the cold temperatures that all of our cyclists did that day. But Karen does it living with MS. When we made the call out to those who have MS to cycle in our bike tour, Karen joined with 3 other inspirational champions and agreed to share her story. So when it comes to facing challenges, Karen is an expert. Please help me welcome Karen Tweed.
Morning, everyone. Unfortunately, the weather cut short the bike tour this year, so I'm really looking forward, and I now have extra incentive to come back next year so I can do both days. So I'm really looking forward to that. My name is Karen Tweed. I'm 40 years old, turning 41 on Monday. I work full-time as administrative assistant for Richardson Pioneer here in downtown Winnipeg. I also have a horse and 2 Jack Russell Terriers. I've always enjoyed cycling, and in August 2003, I participated in my first MS Biking to the Viking tour. At that time, I knew nothing about MS. It was just a challenge and a cycling goal for me. Just 2 weeks later, after completing my first MS Biking to the Viking, I had a severe bout of optic neuritis that left me almost completely blind in my left eye. A battery of blood tests, scans, and specialist consults finally led to the diagnosis of relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. Over the years, I've had to cope with many signs and symptoms. Some come and go, while others are permanent, like the vision loss. I thought life as I knew it was over. I didn't know if I'd be able to work or do the things that make me me. I even sold the horse that I had at that time, thinking that my riding days were over. If I hadn't received such wonderful support and encouragement from the MS Society, I very well might have given up. I felt very empowered by the resources made available by the Society. I even grabbed some information on employment accommodation and took that to my employer, and we were able to start the dialogue on what we needed to do to accommodate me as a person living with MS. I now have magnification software and dual monitors so I can get through the day and make my job easier and more productive. I also got back in the saddle, literally, got another horse and back on the bike. So through that, I realized that I need to stand up for myself to request the accommodation I need so I can continue to live life on my terms. Now I have found balance and I'm living well in spite of MS. And now I want to give back while I'm still able. So that's why I wanted to do the MS bike tour, so that others diagnosed with MS can get the support they need and to fund the research that will get us closer to that ever-elusive cure. I face the challenge of living with MS and will not be defined by it. I will continue to live life on my terms. So today, I'm looking forward to a day of learning. I still find it strange to be wearing an Inspirational Champions jersey because, like everyone here today, I'm also still looking for inspiration. I'm looking for ideas and strategies for making life with MS just that much easier. So I welcome everyone today. Enjoy. Should be a wonderful day of learning.
Thank you very much, Karen. You continue to be an inspirational champion for us all. It's a real pleasure having you here today. This morning, we open with a keynote presentation called Turning Challenges into Opportunity by Pat Kennedy. Pat Kennedy has been working in the field of multiple sclerosis since 1987. Initially, she worked as a nurse practitioner in a large comprehensive MS center and now works for the Can Do Multiple Sclerosis Society, formerly known as the Huga Center in Edwards, Colorado, as a nurse educator for staff and community and program advisor for the organization. Pat is past president of the board of the International Organization of MS Nurses. She is certified as a multiple sclerosis nurse. She has had the opportunity to speak about MS to people living with MS, as well as professional audiences internationally, and contributes to many publications and books. She is the editor of a book written by a multidisciplinary team of professionals who work as staff for Can Do MS. The book is entitled The Can Do Multiple Sclerosis Guide to Lifestyle Empowerment. Please welcome to the podium, Pat Kennedy.
Good morning. While I'm kind of gathering my wits up here, I'd like each of you to pour yourself a little water in your glass. Even if you don't intend to drink the whole thing, pour some water in your glass. Thank you. Small problem. This is not an indication that this will be a dry talk. This is an illustrative point. Oh, and I need my glass. Okay, so I'd like you all to take your glasses and we'll have a small toast. And the toast is going to be to all of you who made all the effort it took to get here today and who were willing to come here, learn more. So cheers and have a small sip from your glass. Okay, click, click, click. And now I would like to have a show of hands. How many of you now look at your glass and think that it's half full? So hold those hands up high. How many of you think that that glass might be half empty? Wow, what a positive group. it would be commonly seen that some people in the audience would raise their hand because for them that glass is half empty. And the problem with the half-empty glass is the more you drink from that half-empty glass, the more the level goes down, and then you're just draining the dust out of the bottom of the glass, and you're not getting anywhere, you're not quenching your thirst. Whereas for those of you who consider it to be half full, you can go on a little while, then you'll fill it up again, and then you'll go on some more, you'll go on some more. And that's really the frame of mind that we would like to think about when dealing with the challenges and then where you're going to go with those challenges. I tend to be the half-empty person, so I probably would have waved my hand. My husband, you know that Life is Good company that makes all those t-shirts? Life is Good, and then has a picture on it. They have one that Life is Good, and it's a glass, and it says half full. He bought me 5, one for every day of the week. It's a different color, but he always checks in the morning to make sure I have it on because he doesn't know how to face me otherwise. So, I will just tell you the place where I work, Can Do MS, and I'm going to move this a little so we don't spill. I have, and I'm not putting them out, but I have them here, so afterwards if you want them. Can Do MS this is one of our brochures, and this is an organization that is devoted to, it's not a treatment place, it's not a place where you go and get medicine. We talk about medicine, but that's not our focus. Our focus is on being a completely whole person, a well person. So we look at your exercise, your diet, we look at your relationships, we look at your mood. We look at all those things which, attended to, are going to make you a complete individual, as opposed to you go and you just talk about your medicine and nothing else gets discussed, or you go and talk about your mood and that's all that gets discussed. We like to think about you as a total person and total needs, and let's address them all, so you end up feeling like a complete individual. So I have brochures for our organization and the programs that we offer. So after my talk, if you're interested, I'll have them here for you. That was my water. Okay. Gotta find my little gizmo here. So MS does present challenges. Good heavens, every one of you know that. I know that. And it threatens your status quo. And your status quo is sort of what you are when you are diagnosed with MS, and that encompasses, what is your life like now? What goals did you have in your life? How did you see your life unfolding? What were your dreams? What were your aspirations? What were your fears in your life? And you have all these things to think about, and how comfortable are you in the life that you lead now? Well, I'm feeling pretty good with the way things are going. And then you are diagnosed with MS. So at that point, I would say to you, when you know yourself, you're empowered. So you have to look at that status quo and kind of know where you were, because that empowers you then to look ahead. And when you accept yourself as you move into MS, then you are invincible, because accepting yourself will allow you to face those challenges and to move forward. So now you need to plan for the future. Well, gosh, sounds easy. Can't people do that? Well, maybe not when you have a diagnosis like MS, or many chronic diseases, actually. MS may change the balance in your life as you begin to examine your plans and your goals. So what you thought you knew now suddenly doesn't look so clear any longer. And so that's going to really throw that balance in your life off. So if you were planning to travel the world, if you were going to take that enviable one-year trip around the world, well, maybe now that doesn't seem like it's possible. Family activities. This is a family who was going to take a year off and sail in the Caribbean. Well, maybe that can't happen now. Certainly, shared activities with other people. You have your climbing group, and you like to go climb mountains. And you go every month. You have a day every month. Well, now maybe you can't join in that or feel you can't join in that. Doesn't mean you can't, but work activities. Well, work is work, and you have a job and a job description, and you do it the way you do it. And I'm going to speak to your point in just a minute because you raised a really good point. And health activities. You know, if you're feeling pretty good and you're doing pretty well, I don't need to go to the dentist this year. I don't need to go get my blood pressure taken. I'm doing well. I don't have to have that mammogram. You know, all those things get kind of put on the back burner because you feel good, and so you put all that health stuff off. I don't need to exercise. Look at me. I'm normal weighted. I can do what I need to do. I don't need to worry about all that. Well, it might catch up with you when you have MS. So what happens when you have MS? Well, basically what I call it is the game changer. Because what has happened is you have had someone move into your life, and it's like someone in your family that you don't really much care for, or maybe even someone you don't even know, knocked on the door and they say, "Can I come visit?" And the problem with them is they're the uninvited guest, and they come and they stay. My mother-in-law used to say that something about 5 days and smelly fish, and that was always the clue that it was time for us to go. But you've got this uninvited guest, and they don't go at the end of 5 days. They are with you for life. So you have to learn how to behave differently. You have to learn how to interact differently because you have this uninvited guest that we call MS. So when you're facing all of this, do you think, and I know that all of you probably have, do you feel that you're in a stage of grief at that point? How many people can admit to the fact that they felt grief at the time of diagnosis and maybe even still today? Do I see some hands out there? Okay. Grief is normal. Grief is good. But grief doesn't just come in and then go out. You have to work at it. You have to do some things to make that work for you. So it's a normal reaction that people have because you've maybe lost your sense of identity, of who you are. You may have symptoms and things you're dealing with that are invisible to others. So you have double grief because you're grieving it for yourself, but you're grieving because you really can't make anybody else understand about it. Grief can occur over and over and over again. So just when you think you're over it, it comes back to get you again. And that's just the way grief is. It's the same way if you lose a family member, if your dog dies. It's all the same because you think you're over it and then it does come back and make you grieve again. And grieving involves what is lost currently or what is anticipated to be lost. Well, we had talked about doing this, but now we can't, and then we feel sad all over again because we're still grieving that loss. So when is it over? Well, again, there's no time frame for grief to be over. So, you know, if you're grieving, I've had so many of my patients say to me over the years, well, I'm not going to show it on the outside because I'm a bigger man than that or I'm a bigger woman than that, and I just don't want people to know that I'm grieving. And I would just say to you, grieving doesn't mean anything more than you're feeling very sad about loss. And it's perfectly real and perfectly okay. And not grieving may be a form of denial. If I don't grieve, then it really isn't so bad. And there are a lot of people walking around who are still in denial about their MS and the impact of MS on their lives. Some people in your life may just say to you, well, get over it. You know, you've had it for 6 months, for gosh sakes, move on. Is that always easy to do? I can't see you, so I'm hoping you're either nodding your head or shaking your head. But the point is that there is no time, and you'll get over it when you get over it. But hopefully, the point is, we'd like you to get over it and move forward. But you'll do it in your own time frame. Not everybody in your relationship circle is going to feel the same way about how you're grieving or how long you're grieving, but the good ones in your relationship circle are going to stay with you anyway. So it's all right. Keep doing it. Talk to people about it. And just know in time, grief will lessen, and in some cases, grief pretty much does go away. Okay. Is the diagnosis of MS a life-altering event? You betcha. Everybody's life is altered to some degree. But it doesn't have to be necessarily negative, because some people can have the diagnosis of MS, and while it does alter their life to some degree, amazing things in a positive way will happen to them because of that diagnosis. It could, in fact, change a direction in a person's life. They may have always wanted to do X. Now that's harder to think about, but instead they can do this, and that becomes far more important to them than what they were originally going to do. At some point in everybody's life with MS, you spend some time thinking about what direction are you going. I would say to those of you in the group who don't have MS, you will spend some time in your life thinking about what direction you're going, and it'll be different than what you set out to do. So that's a normal thing to do. It's just that the diagnosis of MS may push that a little bit, and you may start thinking about that in a different way at a different time. So to move forward in a healthy way, you need to know how you feel about your life with MS. You can't just move forward and expect it just to come along behind you. You actually have to face it. You have to look at it and know, how do I feel about this? It really ticks me off. Well, if it's really ticking you off, that anger may get in the way of that forward direction. You may think, well, you know, as inconvenient as this is, or much as this screwed up my plans, I'm going to try to figure out some other way to do this, that, or the other thing. So you have to begin to look inwardly to be able to know how to move forward. So is MS a threat, a challenge, or an opportunity? And there's no flat answer to that. So if you look at MS as a threat, and many people do, people with that threat hanging over them all the time, they're always looking at the unpredictability, the fact that you can't plan, you can't be certain of the future, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always waiting for it to rain on your head. People are afraid to move ahead if the future is unclear. They're afraid that, you know, well, gosh, if I take that new job and then I can't do it, that's not going to be good. Young people may say, well, I was going to go to college, or I was going to take this class or that class, but I'm not going to do it now because, I've got MS and I just don't know what that'll do, so I'll stay home. And they don't do things like plan that travel, which is too bad, because people with MS can travel quite well. You just have to learn how to do it. I had a patient who was newly diagnosed, and so I typically saw our newly diagnosed patients soon after the physician had laid it on them. And so they were, you know, usually in still a bit of shock and not really knowing what's going on. So the first appointment with me was not terribly long because they weren't listening to me at all. But I can distinctly remember this one couple, and he pulled me aside afterwards, and I always hate those pulling asides, you know, something's going to come. And he said, I'm going to see the realtor tomorrow. And I said, really? Are you moving? And he said, well, we need to put the house on the market. He said, we have a 2-story house, and she's not going to be able to get up and down those stairs, and so we're going to put the house on the market and get a single-story house. I'm going to have it handicap accessible, and on and on and on. And she was diagnosed like 3 days ago. And that's what some people fear in the beginning. And so we have to spend a lot of time saying, let's just sort of follow this along and see how it goes. But don't immediately take that threat and blow it up for the rest of your life's activities, because it may not be that way at all. So living with the threat, if you feel that way about it, life's going to be long. And you're going to miss out on a lot of things that life has to offer, and the people you love and live with are going to miss out on those things too. So that's always a consideration, is you're not an individual, but you're part of a unit, hopefully. And so you have to think about that other person as well. And you will be immobilized if you just don't do anything or go anywhere, which is just no way to live a life. People who become isolated with MS, which means they don't go out, they don't attend this, they don't do things in the community, those people tend to do more poorly in their disease state than people who continue to be active. So the more that people are out and about and participating, they will do better. And the others will sit at home, and their mood will diminish, and so will their physical state. So as active and involved as you can be is a better thing. And you who do that may epitomize the expression, it's the old way or no way. And again, one of my many experiences in practice are those folks who just say, well, if I can't do it the old way, I'm not going to do it at all. And over time, we try to change that attitude, but that's kind of how people go into it. So instead of dropping out, face the obstacle. Don't do all the obstacles, but one obstacle at a time, and decide if it was that important to begin with. You know, I think sometimes when we're young and life looks good and rosy, we plan all kinds of things for ourselves, and now maybe that doesn't look quite as feasible. So is it okay just to kind of drop that one out of, you know, what we're thinking about? If it is important, then figure out how to do it another way. Make adaptations so that you can continue to work toward those things you wanted to do. Now, you gave an excellent example this morning of your workplace and the fact that it wasn't working for you before, and you were having difficulty with just sustaining your ability to be there all day, and so you began to ask for adaptations, and now you're working in a much more comfortable environment for you. We can do that in any number of ways, and so it's a great example for us. And so it's not the old way or no way for you. It's, well, if I can't do it that way, how can I do it? And that's what we want to strive for you to do. So here are some examples of people who decided that they were going to do it their way. This was just on NBC News this week, as a matter of fact. There's a fellow who does paddleboarding, which is that way to stand on a surfboard and paddle. Not some of us won't be doing that, but what he did was he has a wheelchair, and he said he'd like to do that. And I don't have a wheelchair, and I don't want to do that, but he fixed up one of those paddleboards and made some adaptations to it, has his wheelchair on the paddleboard, and oh my gosh, he has this entire school of people paddleboarding with him and having a ball. And they're in their wheelchairs on their paddleboards. So if you can't do it one way, learn to do it another. These are some other things that people can do. You'll see up top a picture of a skier, and Jimmy Huga, who actually started our program, Can Do MS, was actually an Olympic skier, and he learned over time to make adaptations as he went. So, you know, he started off with sort of the outrigger skis, and then he had to go to sit skis, and then, you know, he did this and did that, but he skied up until the year he died, and loved every minute of it. And in the summer, he water skied. I've no longer been able to get out of the water on my water skis, so I commend him on that. So there's a water skier down there who has adaptive equipment. There's some artist equipment down there, and that, for those of you who aren't able to hold the brush or hold the equipment that you need for whatever you're doing, there are so many ways to adapt, and so we want to think about that. So challenges are what make life interesting, but overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. And so at one of our programs, one of the things we feature is dancing. And I don't know how many of you in the room dance. Anybody dance? I see some hands out there. Well, we try to get everybody dancing. And we always say, and you have to look at the mice at the bottom, but we always say to people, you know, nobody really gives a toot how you look when you're dancing. It's just fun. And I think sometimes we get all bound up in that, well, if I can't tango the right way, I'm not going to tango at all. And I would just say to you, get up and tango no matter what it looks like. But people really have learned to do dancing in adapted ways in some cases, or just simply got the nerve up to do it. Maybe they were still stuck in 7th grade where, you know, is he going to ask me to dance? I don't know how to dance. But the point is, nobody cares if you can dance well. Just get up and dance. Open that box and let yourself think of those possibilities. So when you're thinking about some changes you can make, all right, I have MS. What things do I need to do in my life that might help me in a more general way? And this is the time, if you never paid attention before, this is the time to begin to look at your entire life, your whole person. And these are the things that you might want to be looking into for yourself. It's really important when you have MS, it's really important in life that you sleep well. And maybe some things in MS are keeping you from sleeping well because of discomfort, perhaps, or other things that keep us from sleeping well. So sleep is one of those health issues that doesn't get talked about often, terribly important, and it will make you feel so much better if you sleep better. So you may want to challenge your physician and say, you know, I'm not sleeping well. What do we need to do here? Eating healthier. Now, we all have thoughts of what eating healthy means, and I'm not here to challenge your thoughts on what eating healthy means, but I can tell you that, you know, the typical way to give fuel to your body so it will drive as far as it's able to drive with you, the typical way to do that is to eat what the American Heart Association recommends. And you're eating from all food groups, and you're eating throughout the day, and you're eating adequate but not excessive portions. You're not skipping meals. And that is going to feed your whole body. If your whole body is healthier, your MS will behave better. It really will. So this might be a great time in your life to say, okay, bite the bullet and let's learn more about how I can eat healthier and find the right person, a person who understands nutrition and can tell you how to make the right food choices and how much and how often throughout the day. It will help things like your sleep at night. It'll help things like your fatigue during the day. It will help many areas of your life. Exercise more, and you'll hear a lot today about exercise and 3 cheers, because exercising is so important in MS for so many reasons. But one of the big things is it helps people to feel empowered. It helps people to feel more in control. It helps them physically to feel stronger. It can slow the heart rate. It may have benefit on managing what's going on in your brain with MS. You'll feel less fatigue. You'll feel, better able to get up and be out and about, so you're not isolated. So many positives with exercise. This is one of those things you may want to think about now. Well, I never really liked it much before, but, see what you can do. Manage your weight. Having MS is not a license to get heavy or get thin. Having MS is just a license to keep living. But if the heavier you are, the harder it is for you to move around. And so if you're having some difficulty moving around, being a little less heavy might make that easier. Being really thin is not healthy for many other aspects of your overall health. And it may not help your bone health, so you who might be at risk for falling or you who need to sit for longer periods of time are going to be more uncomfortable or more at risk for breaking bones. So managing weight is very important. So I know that you hear that all the time, well, but if you're going to start thinking about ways to improve your overall life, this is one thing you can put in there. Stop smoking. What do we know about smoking and MS? Well, we don't know everything, I'm sure, but we're learning to know some things. People with MS who smoke are more likely to develop secondary MS, secondary progressive MS, before a person who does not smoke. So there's one thing. If you are in a family where MS is present, like a mother, father, one of your kids, MS is present, you as a family member have a slightly greater risk of developing MS. If you're a smoker, your risk goes up. So another reason why smoking is not good. Plus, if you're smoking, that secondhand smoke has an effect on the person living with MS, and you don't want that on your conscience. So I would suggest to you that smoking is one of those things that no matter how you do it successfully, do it. It's something that is good for you, it's good for your family. And experience your spirituality. I think in life, some people are very tuned in to their spirituality, and that can be different for every one of you. But it's that inner strength, that driving force within us that keeps us going in a positive direction, makes us think about the world around us. And sometimes when we're busy at life, we think a little bit more about ourselves and maybe not as much about how we really are inside. So when you have MS, it might be a really good time to kind of touch base with that again and get some strength coming from within you that you hadn't tapped into for a while. Spirituality is such an important part of managing your MS. Challenges can broaden your view. So you've had the threats. Now you look at challenges. You might choose now to spend more time making relationships. You know, maybe life was too busy before, and you just simply, oh, I don't have time to join that club. I don't have time to play bridge. I don't have time to have coffee with the guys in the morning. All those sorts of things. Maybe now's a good time to do that. So think about that as a way to manage that challenge of, oh, it's so hard to do it, and figure out a way to do it. Evaluate your stress. The level of stress in general and just stress as it affects you in life. And if you're coming to the stress workshop later, we're going to talk more about this. But with stress, there are stresses in all of our lives that we can eliminate. There really are. Husbands, wives, no, can't do that. But you can do that with other stressors in your life that will make things so much easier. And effectively manage the stressors in your life that you cannot get rid of. And you can't get rid of all stress in life. So you need to come up with ways that you can effectively manage what's out there so that it isn't draining you and you can move on. And my word for this is start to think out of the box. You all know what that means? Where, when you were in kindergarten, they always told you to make sure you colored inside the lines, and oh my gosh, you tried to do that all the time. And I'm just telling you to color outside the lines. Begin to think about what's outside those lines, what's outside that box, and what's out there that I can play in, and see what comes up. Threats and challenges become opportunities. And I think I've said that before in a different way. For instance, if somebody says, well, I'm falling a lot more easily now, and so therefore I really don't want to go out with my friends, and therefore I don't. Isolation coming on down the road. Or a person can say, Well, I'm a little quivery on my legs, but I'm going to put my cane in the back of the car. And when we get to where we're going, if I'm feeling a little shaky, I'm just going to get that cane out and we're just going to keep going. As opposed to the person who says, I don't want to be seen in public with my cane. And you could say the same with a walker. You could say the same with a wheelchair. They're aids. They're not things that you're married to. They're things that can help you when you want to get where you want to get to, like the mall, for instance. But just things like that, be ready for it and have it there to use if you need to use it. It's so empowering. I can do this. I can go out to lunch with my friends. I just get myself up those steps using my cane. Challenges you might face, however, and not to make light of this, are relationship struggles. In MS, it just follows that there are so many things that kind of are there that you're dealing with as couples, as families. You're dealing with these things, and relationships may be an issue. Invisible symptoms, as I said before, you may have those symptoms, but if nobody else can see them, isn't it hard when you try to tell people why you're so tired or why you're always going to the bathroom or whatever the case may be on that particular day, those invisible symptoms. If you say, well, we're going to go here on Saturday, and Saturday morning dawns, and you just feel like it's one of those MS days. And so you say, I'm just not feeling up to it. And then people say, well, you were fine yesterday. And that's what you get. And so you need to learn how to communicate about this, and that interferes with all your relationships. Interpersonal challenges, those are people that you meet along the way, and we'll talk some more about this. Differences in coping styles. Every one of you has coping styles, but you have different ones, and so what works for you is the important one. Forming or changing future plans. How good are you at making future plans, period? And then if they don't work out, how good are you at changing it, saving face, and doing something else instead? So again, maintaining or achieving general good health. So this is not the time in your life to become someone who is ill or someone who just doesn't have the energy or the drive to live a reasonable life. You're just sort of sitting there. So these are all things for you to think about. So relationship struggles, what might happen here? Remember that uninvited guest? Well, they're still there. And so because they're still there, you're still having to deal with them in your relationships. And that person is just causing stress all the time. You think you have them under control in the guest room, but every once in a while he gets out and it causes problem. You may have changes in roles and responsibilities. One of you maybe was the person to take out the garbage, and now that's not so easy, and so the other person needs to step up and take out the garbage. And that's a very small example, but when they add up, little by little by little, I think you'll find that that can interrupt your relationships in general. So something to think about. Giving up activities you like may make you feel bad if you have MS. Boo-hoo, I can't do that. But importantly also, it may make your relationship partner feel bad as well. And so now you're both kind of back in the grieving mode again. I feel really bad that I can't, she can't, he can't. And so something that as a relationship you're going to need to talk about. If a person in your relationship has to take on more responsibilities because the other person in the relationship is unable to do those anymore, that can put a lot of stress in the relationship, and it causes people to, the person who's taking on the extra work is feeling a little put upon. And the person who's having to give it up feels a little, I feel like a weakling. I feel like not my whole person because I can't do that anymore. And over time, neither one of you, and this is, this is a couple thing or a relationship thing, neither one of you are the same people that you were when you got together. And I think sometimes that is a very, very hard realization. And, you can work on that for sure, but you have to talk about it to work on it. So understand that things do change and you are having to kind of revamp how you think about things. So those invisible symptoms such as the fatigue, the pain, the bladder, all of those, they're hard to describe. Sometimes it's hard to ask for help in a healthy way. I don't know if you understand that. I think some of you do. It's easier to say, oh, it's all right, I'll do it myself, and then fall on the way. Or, it's all right, I can do without. Or, it'd really be nice if you knew what I needed and just did it. That's called mind reading. And none of us are particularly good at that. And, so there are unhealthy ways that we do this communication, and it ends up to just widen the gap within that relationship through the invisible symptoms. And walls are built, and sometimes they become quite difficult to break down. But just hear it here and see if any of this applies to you, and then we'll talk about what you might do about it. Interpersonal challenges. Aren't there people around you that just love to tell you everything there is to know about MS? I hear some laughs in the audience. I can remember, for years, a friend and I taught a class, MS 101, very original title, don't you think? But it was MS 101 for newly diagnosed, and some of our newly diagnosed patients had actually had MS for 5 years. I mean, they were just coming around to saying the word out loud, so they were newly diagnosed. But they all, almost always to a person, said, yeah, I had this lady at my office, or I had this next door neighbor who said, yes, her Aunt Edith had MS and she died. Really helpful. And I think that people say that all the time. And, oh, I saw so-and-so at church on Sunday and she was in a wheelchair. She must be getting really worse. Well, what they don't know is that she stubbed her toe and it hurt her to walk, and she's in the wheelchair to get there. People just don't know. They make assumptions. And so you're going to run into all those people. So it's always nice to have a little handy answer in your pocket. Not too snide, but maybe just a little, just to let people know. You'll also park in I'm hoping you do this at times, park in the handicapped spot at the grocery store or at the mall. And that day that you're really tired, and if you have to walk that distance to there, you're not going to be able to do anything else. And so it's okay to do that. But unfortunately, if your big symptom is fatigue, how do you look to everybody else? Pretty normal. And so somebody's bound to come up to you and say, you can't park in that spot. And so to have some, in this case, a snide comment in your pocket might be helpful. Or you might be nicer than me and have something that is passable. But it's a good teaching moment, by the way. It's a good teaching moment if you want to take the time to do that. But well-meaning people, you can handle that in a healthy way and not end up feeling bad or making them feel bad. And if your relationship with whomever is new and kind of tentative, not everybody gets somebody with a chronic disease, and they may pull away. And that does happen. It does happen. It hurts, but just know that it does happen. Do your best, and if that's the outcome, then that was just the way that was meant to be. Coping styles. All of us have them. We've had them for many years. Some of them work over and over. Depending on the situation, you can pull the same coping style out. Some styles have to be developed because you haven't ever had to deal with this before. So you have to think, well, now how am I going to cope with this one? But most of us who are thinking about this are able to come up with coping styles. Sorry about that. Some people say, I can't cope. And basically what they tell me is, I won't cope. You know, I just can't deal with this. I can't possibly cope. I don't have the energy to cope. I'm just going to sit at home and not do anything. So there are some coping styles. There are millions, but I highlighted 3. There's an unhealthy denial. That's one coping style. There is over-identification, and there's healthy denial. So we'll just talk briefly about that. This is the unhealthy denial with the ostrich with his head in the sand. You know, stuck on the why me? Why do I get this? And I'm not taking this sitting down. I'm not going to take any medicine for MS. You know, pharmaceutical companies are making all the money. It's not going to help me. MS is going to get worse. I'm not taking that. Won't use assistive devices, and I know our PTs and OTs who are here certainly can relate to this. Closets are full of canes all over the world. Avoid increasing learning to learn more about MS. And if you don't know about MS, then you don't know what the good things are to know. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Learn all you possibly can. And avoid by avoiding others, you get less support and you're more isolated. And we've talked about how negative that can be. Then one way to cope is over-identification with MS. And what this is a person who just envelops themselves in the person living with MS. And they belong to every support group, and that's all they talk about. And their whole daily activity calendar is filled with things that involve all things MS. And family, friends, and community are left out of all of this because it's all very self-centered or MS-centered. And they get tired of it, and so they begin to pull away, and you're not included as much in the conversation. So if you see any pieces of you, kind of look at it from the other side and see if maybe that might have some truth for you. But healthy denial, you know, you don't have to spend every minute saying, oh, I have MS. You can spend a lot of time not having MS, and then at times you have to own up to it. So own your MS when you have to, but you can change to healthier relationships by learning how to communicate better. You know, be able to talk with someone else about either what you're experiencing or what they're experiencing and make those connections so that you're not alone. Change to a healthier lifestyle. That'll take up a lot of your time. And it's a good thing, and you'll feel so much better when you do that. So that's a good thing to do. And learn to balance the need to manage MS and its symptoms with the need to move forward in life in a more healthy way. Balance. So here's a teeter-totter. People who cope effectively are more likely to achieve balance, even if it means doing things differently. So that's sort of a catchword. You know, okay, if not that way, then what way? And move forward with that. Now, here's just a list of coping styles that people have. And, you know, the room is too big. I was thinking that I would like to ask from you guys, although we do have handhelds, do we not? Daryl? Oh, there. Oh, you're not Daryl, but you have handhelds. Okay, so here's a list of coping styles, but do any of you in this room have any favorites that you have used? If so, raise your hand. She's going to run to you with a microphone. Anybody have some coping styles that you felt were really good for you? Anybody? Well, that's hard to believe. Okay, here's one.
I have I have a positive attitude. I'm like your biker there. And that I've been in wheelchair, I've been in hospital, down and out, learned to walk 3 times, to speak, to swallow, and here I am today. Recovery in MS is very possible, and keeping the attitude positive is very supportive.
Excellent. Thank you.
We have one over here.
Over here? Did I see?
Yep.
Hello.
Okay.
I find my daughter had MS for some time, and music made a huge difference in her life.
Did she play
loved
or
music.
listen?
No, she couldn't play, but her brother would play for her, and of course she listened to music over the stereo and that. So I regard that as a powerful influencer.
Do you know that there actually is some research now that looks at the therapeutic benefits of music with MS and from a relaxation point of view?
I'd be very interested in seeing that.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Okay, well, you can all just sit there and keep those coping things to yourself then. But you have this on your, do they have handouts? No. No handouts. Oh, yes, you do have handouts. Okay, so understanding yourself is essential in managing other relationships. So you got to know who you are before you can really open up for others. So that goes for support partners, kids, extended family, and community. So when you're talking about working with your support partners, communication is basically the key. And we talk from the time we're 2, and yet we struggle talking to the people in our relationships. And this is a place where people need to begin in talking about around MS, about symptoms and about how you're managing, how you feel about MS, talking about how it's fitting into your life, what changes you have to make, but you need to communicate about that. And that's easy to say, not so easy to do, may need some outside help with doing that. If the ingredient necessary is not there, intimacy is going to take a nosedive. We'll talk about that in a second. And it applies equally to people living with MS and the support partners. So this isn't directed at anyone in particular. Communication is a two-way tool, and we need to look at that. So intimacy, and I'm not talking necessarily about sexual intimacy here, but of course it is involved. But when you are having difficulty sharing of yourself with other people, communication-wise, touching, any of those ways, then that closeness of intimacy is not going to be there. And we have to have intimacy in our lives. You may not have 100 people you're intimate with, but you may have several that you're very close with. It can be your golden retriever. But some people even, I don't want the dog because I'll trip over it. So it gets that complicated. But intimacy refers to closeness, and that's emotional closeness as well as physical closeness, touching. Trusting someone enough that you can share those innermost thoughts. Respect for someone. That goes a long way when you feel as an individual, she really respects me for what I've been able to do, and how good that feels, and you're going to be much more likely to latch on to that person. Honesty with one another. Physical and emotional connections. So, you're sharing those innermost thoughts and cares, but you're also, emotionally sharing as well. Mutual concern, so that you both are worrying about the same things and celebrating the same things as well. And giving and receiving. So you can't have one-way intimacy. You need to be able to give and to share. And sexual intimacy falls into this because that's one of those things in MS that sometimes does take a slap, because that goes by the wayside when people lose that ability to communicate and to be intimate. We also communicate through the words we use, through our facial expressions, through our body language, through touch. And you all know how you can look when you're happy and how you can look when you're really ticked. And if we're given a lot of those ticked movements, it's not going to go well. So be thinking about how you outwardly express some of that. And mind reading, you'll see up there, it never works, by the way. We communicate more efficiently if we accurately talk about our feelings, if we repeat ideas and feelings and needs of the other person. So if you've talked but you're not sure they got it, say it again and see if that helps. Send a clear, unambiguous message. In other words, don't mince words. Just say, it would make me feel a whole lot better if, and then say what it is you want, as opposed to, and that sort of thing. You just, if there are needs that you have, be able to express them. Invite rather than discourage a response. So if the way you communicate in your relationship is one person just gets up and walks out, well, follow them out. Continue the conversation or ask them to come back. And allow the other person to respond. Sometimes when we say what we want, then that's it, we said it. But the other person has to have a place to respond, and then adult interaction. Talking to kids, just make sure that the kids get included in this conversation. And, age appropriate. Obviously, a 2-year-old doesn't need to know everything about MS, but a 10-year-old is beginning to notice things and really does need to know more about MS in a way that they can understand. Kids may have to pick up some of the roles in the family. They need to know why. And so be able to explain to them why. And kind of bucking through it and doing it all yourself and not asking your kids is not a good thing. But on the flip side, asking your 10-year-old to help you in the potty is probably not appropriate. Kids need to be kids. And we need to somehow encourage people to allow kids to be kids and then get the help you need in other ways. Extended family, people let extended family know about MS in time. If it's an aunt you see every 20 years, maybe later. If it's your parents and you're seeing them next week, maybe sooner. But the point is, you can kind of spread some of this stuff out. And as it's appropriate, it will be okay. But don't feel that immediately you have to send out an entire list of announcements to people about your MS. Your community. I love this saying. We could learn a lot from crayons. Some are sharp, some are pretty, and some are dull. Some have weird names and are different colors, but they all have to live in the same box. If your color changes, don't leave the box, blend in. And so when you're in the community, as things change, figure out what you can do to blend in so you can still be part of that community. Self-talk is a powerful tool, good and bad. If positive, it's going to help move you forward. If it's negative, it's going to hold you back. A happy person is one who can enjoy the scenery on a detour. How many of you think you can enjoy scenery on a detour? Good, I see some hands back there. You don't know my husband. He would not be on that slide. And destructive thinking patterns that we all might have would be things like everything is black and white. We exaggerate everything, always focusing on the negative and not looking at all the positive. Bearing everything alone. It's not yours alone. It belongs to others that you are close with. And the sorry syndrome when, oh, I'm so sorry I can't do that. I'm so sorry I can't do that. And that wears people down. So you need to work on those as well. So turning thinking patterns around, pick a negative thought and develop positive answers. So my walking buddies won't want to be with me anymore. And the big deal was that they would go walk and then they would all go down and drink coffee for 2 hours. And they're so afraid because now I'm not walking, I'm not going to get to do that. And you learn either to walk better, learn to use a cane and walk better. You learn, just meet them for coffee. That's the best part of it anyway. But the point is that everything doesn't have to be a negative. You can just figure out a different way to do it. So where when everything is going your way, you're in the wrong lane. So if you sometimes feel as if, oh my God, it's all coming at me at the same time, get out of the lane and get into the right lane and then move forward again. And I have just a couple more things here. The more people involved in your life, more effective you'll be in managing your MS, not be alone. The more people in your life, you'll be less dependent on any one of them, and that's better for everyone. And the support of family and friends have that huge impact on your life. So finally, I would like to show you this. Envision that blue line in the middle as where your life was going before you got diagnosed. Envision that, and whatever was on that line is on that line. Envision the green line as how you might have envisioned that life after the diagnosis. Everything was on a downhill slide, and you spent all your time trying to get back up to the blue line. All that energy getting back up to the blue line, making it the way it was, making it the way it was. And I'm suggesting a different thought for you to take home today. That red line suggests that anything positive, whether it's putting a wheelchair on a paddleboard or taking up a new hobby, whatever it may be, things put on that red line will help to keep that blue line right up there where it would have been in the first place. It's positive, and it helps your life to move forward in a positive way without expending all your energy being negative. So I will tell you just one last thing. I just did this before I got here today. I just got an email yesterday that is a press release, and it's something I want you to know about. And this is a website. You don't have it in your thing because I didn't have it when I had that. msblueprint.com. This is an invention of a number of organizations, but it is funded by Biogen IDEC. I did warn them this morning that I would be talking about this, so they would be able to talk to you. It is a website you can go to that talks about how to make a blueprint for your future in a very positive way, and has very tricky ways that you can utilize a format and the people that they have speaking on this to help you kind of look at your onward direction and help you with that blueprint for moving forward. So I seldom bring up a pharmaceutical name, but this is a particularly good product. It's also sponsored by Can Do MS, and it's also sponsored by the International Organization of MS Nurses. So I have every right to stand here and tell you about it. And I hope you go there and enjoy it. And in the meantime, go forward in life and feel good about it and have a good life. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Crayons.
Thank you very much, Pat, for presenting such insightful information on this very important topic. I found what really resonated with me is how we need to be broadening our view when meeting with challenges, and I really liked your example when you said about not only thinking beyond the box, but color beyond the lines when you're working your coloring book. Before we take a short break, while the hotel staff reconfigure the hall, please note that the breakout sessions will begin here at 11:15. Signs are posted, so you will find your breakout session in Royal A, B, or C. MS Society staff will also be available to help you find the room. Also, if you didn't have a chance when you arrived, please ensure that you have checked in with our registration desk and obtained your conference bag, generously provided by Desjardins Financial Security Investments, Inc. You have two numbers on your name tag. The first is for the morning session, and the second is for the afternoon session. The morning sessions are located as follows. In number 1 is stress and its impact, and that'll be in Royal A. Number 2, you are the answer, which will be in Royal B. And 3, tips for traveling with MS will be found in Royal C. I hope you enjoy the session of your choice, and I'll see you back in the conference room for lunch at 12 o'clock.